So what are initiative, innovation, creativity? Big words. They mean different things to different people in different times. But in science, we need to make sure that we know what we're talking about, and definitions become very important. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. Understand what they mean, what they don't, and how they relate to our lives, including the cell phones in our pocket. Stay tuned. So welcome. I'm Leehu Zysberg, and I will be your guide in this journey, if you will. A journey that at the end of, I hope, you'll be able to say that you did not only master major concepts in this field, but also learn something new on how to do things differently in your course. As always, when we begin something new, when we begin the exploration of a new field, we have to figure out what we're talking about. It's very important to realize what the main concepts are, and even sometimes more important than this, what they're not. If you will, we're marking the boundaries of our discussion. And we'll begin by looking at the descriptions and the definitions of each of our main concepts. Initiative is our first concept. What is it? Well, initiative is a concept describing a process of presenting or the inception of a line of thought, action that were not common or considered acceptable until that point in time when it was introduced. It's about introducing something new, starting a new line of action. While we do see initiative often as reference to new lines of thought, new conceptualizations, and so on, in most cases what we really mean when we say initiative is the starting up of a new line of activity. This has a lot to do with motivation and, well, the ability to dream and dare. Now we move on to the concept of innovation, spoken a lot about, but what is it? Well, here we go. Innovation is a concept pertaining to ideas, processes, or actions that are novel and of added value to a given group or organization, or introduced marked improvement over existing status. In other words, it's not only doing something in a new manner, it's doing something better. And that's very important. The added value for a given group of reference is actually the key for our understanding of what innovation is. So let's try an example for two types of innovation. One, reactive. The second one, disruptive, if you will. So the first is something we all know, the shift from chemicals-based photography to digital photography. We have digital cameras everywhere, on our phones, wherever we go, well, in every junction in the street, basically. But these were not around always, as you may remember. A decade and a half ago, the dominant manner of taking pictures in the industry was chemicals-based. The idea of using digital technology to record light in an effective manner is relatively new because no one believed it would be as good quality as the chemicals-based. Actually, professional photographers were the last to adopt and embrace the digital technique or technology because they believed they will not be able to provide the same quality to their audiences. However, in a very brief amount of time, digital photography surpassed chemicals-based photography and basically made it obsolete. But here's an example for what we call often disruptive innovation. That is, an innovation that does not provide an answer to a problem or reacts to changes in technology. It actually creates and leads that change and creates a disruption of a certain industry or even in the way that we behave on a daily basis. And that's, of course, the smartphone. Introduced in 2007 by Steve Jobs of Apple and presented to the public, actually backlashed quite a bit at the beginning of its first steps in the world. People were asking themselves, what should people do with so much technology, with access to internet, and with basically a computer in their pocket? Do we really need it? Do we want it? Can you imagine life today without smartphones? Communication, assignments, immediacy of news traveling. Anything you can almost imagine in human interaction is today documented or supported by smart cellular technology. Here, Steve Jobs did not react to a growing need or to a problem. He created a need that was not there before. And that's, in the eyes of many, is the highest level possible of innovation. Last but not least in our list of important concepts we need to know about is the concept of creativity. A lot has been said, written, and suggested about creativity, but I think people often mistake it or see in it things that are not necessarily there. So let's go back to basics. What is creativity in terms of the single person as a personal process? So here we go. Creativity is a complex concept describing a tendency toward or the process of creating something new and uncommon, perceived to be of added value in the context in which it's presented. In other words, creativity can be two things: a propensity towards something, or the process of creating something new that was not there before, that has a certain value, and usually in a surprising or singular manner. Sometimes, and it's very rare, that we see creativity pops up or appearing from zero to something. We often see creativity taking place in a movement in which individuals or groups combine elements that seem to be totally unrelated to each other, but they do manage to put them together in a manner that's original and effective. Another thing to bear in mind, while considering the concept of creativity and its implications, is that it is relative. It's not just a psychological process, it's also a sociological and cultural influenced process. In other words, it's very sensitive to context. What would be considered very creative in one context may be considered very banal or even destructive in another. Here are a couple of examples. The renowned painter Gauguin, Paul Gauguin, actually was a government clerk until his midlife. He had a very bourgeois life. And then all of a sudden something happened. Could it be midlife crisis? I don't know. He left his family, moved to Haiti, where he painted and drank himself to death, basically. He was very poor and misunderstood. In other words, nobody wanted to buy his paintings. The painting you see right now in the picture was actually offered to a boatman in return to a boat trip to the mainland and back. Not too long ago, this same painting was sold for over $40 million. So what seemed at the time to be somewhat naive art, crude, not very artistic or acceptable, is now a groundbreaking point in the development of modern art. So again, context sensitivity in what is creative and what's not is very important to consider. So here's how the three concepts interact or interconnect. Initiative is the engine upon which everything sits, if you will. That's the motivation, that's the behavioral pattern that actually brings something into fruition. Innovation is the need and the ability to present something new, usually as a solution to a problem or an improvement of an existing situation, offering a better, more effective way of doing things. The intersection of these two concepts is what we often call creativity. That is, the drive from initiative intersects with the ideas and the added value of innovation, and there you go, creativity.